hot. It's about to get hot. Welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. I'm Nate the Barbarian. Welcome back. Let's get straight into it. We got a great panel, the usual crew today with us. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Let me see if I can. There we go. How are you? Hey, Phil made it. What's up, Phil Heimlich? How you doing, sir?
I got to ask you guys, how did the show go on Friday?
It went well.
That's strange because I heard a lot of stuff from viewers that it lacked the intellectual vitality, the keen analysis, the sharp wit that is normally associated on the show. I don't know why. I mean, I don't understand, but I was just a little concerned.
Yeah, I
So
wonder
did
what was
anybody other than your family call you on that, Phil?
Oh no, my family doesn't watch the show. They've got better things to do.
better things to do. All right. Kevin Aldridge, good to see you, boy.
Good to
My
see you
man,
guys.
Voice of Reason.
Happy
Tarris.
Tuesday.
Oh, happy Tuesday. Tarris, Troy, Horton, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. Good to see you guys.
Good to see everybody. All right, let's get straight into it. Just last night, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is running for governor of the state of Ohio, he held a town hall here. It wasn't in downtown Cincinnati, but it was close to downtown, kinda. And I want to play just a couple of clips for you, just a little bit of the opening there, and then get your thoughts about what went down. Check this out.
Good to be back home in Cincinnati, everybody. So we're having a serious discussion tonight, and we're going to get right into it. You've heard me speak in other forums. You all don't need to hear me give a campaign speech tonight. That's not why we're here. We're here because less than 2 weeks ago, on the night of July 25th, Friday night, actually it was in the early hours of Saturday morning, there was a group of people going out in their city who were violently attacked by a violent mob in the city of Cincinnati.
That's it.
There have been multiple people arrested and charged since then. We're not here to talk about and re-adjudicate the events of that evening. That's going on independently. But what we are here to do is to talk about how we end the epidemic of violent crime spreading across the city and across the country. And with your help tonight, we are opening up a conversation in this city that finally puts an end to it. Thank you for coming out tonight, guys. We're very proud of you and excited.
So that was Vivek, just his opening right there. It was exciting. Man, I didn't attend, but I kind of wish I did attend. I'm sure the energy was nice. He came out to This Is How Legends Are Made. And, Vivek is he's an impressive human being. He's very impressive. And he worked the crowd last night. I've got some more clips. Former Cincinnati City Council person Christopher Smitherman was actually like a co-MC. So I've got some clips of what he had to say. But here's my question. Was Vivek's town hall in Cincinnati, is that helpful or not? Is this going to help the situation, whatever you think the situation is?
Yeah, look here. I'll go first. I was trying to give our other guys an opportunity because I'm always first out the gate, but look, I'll say this much. I'll give Ramaswamy credit in this regard that nobody else is really or has really done anything like this in the aftermath of what has happened. Now, you can look at it as political, and he started out as, hey, I'm not going to do this as a campaign speech. So, of course, we know there's always politics and whatnot behind this sort of thing. But there's also smart politics. And I think what he is doing is he is trying to have a conversation around these issues that, quite frankly, the Democratic leadership of this city should have been trying to do. There's been no effort by the mayor or anybody to try, at least at this point, to try to bring the community together around a conversation that might attempt to kind of try to address some of these issues that are going on. And I'm trying to take the politics out of it, the Democratic Republican politics out of it, and talk about what is needed for Cincinnati. What you have right now is a lot of folks who are angry on a lot of different sides and a lot of back and forth and who should be charged and who shouldn't be charged and what should we do about crime and what should we not do about crime. And I think these are the types of conversation that we need to be able to have in a respectful manner, across our city. And like it or not, Vivek Ramaswamy in this case has outclassed, the Democratic leadership of this city in terms of being responsive. He was the first one to go and have a conversation with the woman that got beat up. We just had a conversation not too long ago about the mayor going up and visiting with victims of violent crimes. That's something that the mayor should have done, regardless of whether the politics of it. It just would have been a good look for the mayor to at least go in and check on this. Like, I haven't heard that he or anybody on city council has. So you can take the cynical look and you can say, yeah, this is just a political opportunity for Ramaswamy, but it's smart politics because he is doing what no other Cincinnati politician is doing around this issue right now.
I'm going to agree with Kevin on that with smart politics. I don't think it ain't right. It's not right. As a Republican, with all that's going on right now, it turns my stomach. But as Kevin said, it's a good political move. The only thing I don't like about what he did, because I was like that opening statement, is he built it on a lie. He built it on a lie. He built it on this angry mob attack these, go out. Until the Republicans tell the truth, it's not going to work. They might get this instant this budge, this little nudge that they need, and they're feeding their base. They're feeding their base. But I think it says I'm losing connection, but
yeah, you're kind of in and out. It's kind of spotty. You want to try to step out and come back?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Hey, Phil, you want to jump in there? What's your take? Is that helpful for what's happening in Cincinnati or not?
It's helpful to Ramaswamy. I don't know that it's helpful to anybody else. In fairness, when I was on city council, I used to hold those town meetings all the time on crime, and it helped me. In fairness, it gave people a chance to kind of be heard and show up. And so there's some benefit from it. But truth is, I have so little respect for this guy that it's hard to really look at it objectively as other than basically a campaign stunt.
All right, Tarris, you're back. You want to jump in there?
Yeah, like I said, it was built on a lie, and from the beginning, all of this has been built on a lie. From the first reports from J.D. Vance, he built it on a lie, and then all the Republican right-wing pundits that are podcasting and putting on this are exacerbating the lie. Nobody wants to see the truth. You tell them the truth, and then they start backpedaling, talking about what if, they just don't want to hear it. So, as a black, to answer the question, was it helpful for Vivek Ramaswamy for his base and for his overall gubernatorial race? Yes. For right now, for healing, what we need right now in our community is healing, in my opinion. I don't think that was a good healing thing. I think he stirred his base. He gave his base more meat.
Well, we don't need healing. We need to stop violence. We don't need healing.
I disagree with that, Phil. We need both. You need both. You need both. And see, that's part of the problem. Attitudes like that, Phil, are part of the problem in Cincinnati. Is you think that that just locking people up and arresting people is going to solve. Cincinnati's issues are deeper than that. And so I'm not saying that doesn't need to happen, that we don't need to make sure that we address the crime situations, but there also needs to be an honest conversation and vetting around the issues that are underlying this, because it complicates our ability to get to solutions that everybody can agree on. And I think if you just take a straight black and white, no pun intended, a straight black and white approach to just, hey, this is just about knocking out crime, and you don't address all of these underlying conversations that need to be had in this city. This is why we keep winding up in these spots every time something like this happens, because, quite frankly, people like you think that the healing conversations are not worth having.
Let me finish.
Let me just say one thing, if I could. You know, what's interesting is normally we start talking when this happens. Oh, we need more youth programs. Our youth don't have anything to do. We need better schools. But guess what? Those so-called kind of root causes things, you can't use those here because these guys were 20s and 30s. This really wasn't a youth thing. So what
Let's go back.
if you're saying, oh, hold it, what are, if it's, since they're not teenagers, they're adults, some grown and a couple with some serious criminal records, but besides that, what is the underlying thing that
So
needs to
Phil,
be
we're
done?
not just
Let me go back.
So Phil,
He's what
I'm glad you brought that up, Phil. We're not just talking. So again, this was a town hall on crime, not a town hall on the brawl. The brawl is a reason why they're having this conversation on crime. So as we know, the crime problem in Cincinnati is not isolated to the brawl incident. In fact, the conversation prior to the brawl had been about youth violence and youth gun violence.
But that doesn't apply here, you admit.
No, but Phil, it was a town hall on crime. If you're talking about crime, then you're talking about the youth and these.
I'm asking your opinion. What you said, underlying causes we should be looking at, not just more cops and more arrests. So, what are the underlying causes that, as far as this brawl goes?
Well, I don't think there are any underlying. I don't think there are any underlying causes.
You said that
as
we
far
have to
as
look at the underlying causes, and
but Phil, I'm talking about crime in general. You're trying to talk about last night's town hall forum was about crime in Cincinnati, not solely the brawl. Correct?
Would you agree, though, all that stuff about youth recreation, all that other stuff does not apply in this particular case? Would you agree?
Well, hell no, it doesn't apply to the brawl. But they weren't just talking about the brawl last night, Phil. That's what
I don't care what they were
trying to
talking
say.
about. I don't care what they were talking about.
Of course
I'm
you don't.
saying
Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about was the town hall helpful? So it does matter. How can you say I don't care what they were talking about last night? And this is what we're talking about in this segment. That's
because
ridiculous.
he doesn't. He just told us, and he's correct. He has the sentiment of whenever I get on this program and I'm talking about how disappointed I am in most white men who are in their 40s and 60s. They don't care when you start talking about how black people feel. They check out. They check out. They start talking about, like with this situation with the brawl, like with Vivek, and I'm proud of Vivek for not harping on it too much. He went there instantly, and then he came out and then he started going back and forth, and he allowed people to tell their stories. Anecdotal experiences, how they feel the Cincinnati, how it's affecting white people. Where's the black dot? Every time black people start talking about how we feel, we get cut off and talk about, well, we should be this and be this. Like I said, from when JD Vance started this whole thing off with a lie, until that is fixed, nothing is going to go good for them. They think he started this lie off to get his brother in office. Nothing is going to go good for them until they clean this lie up. And so Vivek can do whatever he wants to. But overall, it was good for him. But as long until the Republican Party fixes this lie, it's over for them.
Yeah, for me, I wished it was more helpful than I perceive it to be. I just felt like, I felt like this was opportunistic on Vivek's part. It was like, oh, something happened and I'm running for governor in a year and a half. So let me go out here and let people know how I feel about it. Because, the way he started, it was a lie, like Tarris said. And so if you really genuinely are trying to address the issue, then you move with honesty and facts, not just, your hyperbole about the situation. And I'm not really sure. I mean, I think that victims of crime should have platforms to speak their piece, and whatever comes from that is a good thing. Outside of that, it just felt like this was all really about Vivek, and he's going to be running for governor, and he's going to be super tough on crime, which I'm fearful about what that means in terms of policy in Ohio. But if he really cared about what happened in Cincinnati, then I just felt like it would have been different, in my opinion. This felt like this felt like his first campaign appearance more than I'm really concerned about the community. This is just my opinion about it. But I gotta push back on something Kevin said. Like, again, we forget there has been many conversations between the community and law enforcement and politicians over the years, over and over again, trying to deal with crime and youth violence and the issues. And we just forget all of that when something happens. And we make statements like, well, Democrats never do that. That is just not true.
I
You know,
didn't
I
say
see
never
people,
do that. I said they didn't do it in this instance, which is
yeah, I
again,
think you said, no, you said they don't do it. And you
no,
said
I
that,
said they haven't done it. I didn't say they didn't do it. I
yeah, but
said
they
they
have
haven't
done it
done
though.
it in this
But they
instance.
have done it. They have done it. Like members of the community, along with city council
When have
members,
they
have
had
had
a
press
meeting like what
conferences.
you with the community like what you saw last night?
Yeah, but what I'm
The
saying is
since the
we don't
brawl.
need what we saw last night. What we need is our leadership working with community on real
Well,
solutions. What
evidently
happened
a whole
last
bunch of
night
people who
was
showed
nothing
up
more
for
than
that disagreed.
grandstanding. What
I mean,
happened last
evidently a
night was
whole bunch of people who
grandstanding.
showed up for that forum disagreed about whether it was needed or not.
Well, I'm sure they did because there's a really concerted effort to try to make Cincinnati red. And they're going to go with Vivek or whatever the gubernatorial candidate, a GOP candidate is going to say. They're going to go with that no matter what. But that doesn't mean that they're genuine actors who are genuinely concerned about addressing the genuine issues in Cincinnati. I didn't hear a lot of that. You know, outside of the victims, and again, I give them wide latitude. I'm not going to criticize, somebody that lost a husband or a son or a daughter. Outside of that, I didn't see a whole lot of genuine conversation that will genuinely lead to genuine solutions that we genuinely need. It just felt like all politics. And like I said, I mean, I've been to some of these things where the community sits down in Cincinnati with members of law enforcement and they're writing down ideas and everybody's in breakout sessions. I've been there in this city.
Mhm.
So to suggest that that does not happen is just
Didn't
plain
say it does
wrong.
not happen. I can't, brother Nathan. I love you, but I can't let you put words in my mouth that I didn't say, and I'm not going to let you characterize what I said like that.
So what did you say again?
I never said it didn't happen. I said Ramaswamy is doing something now in the aftermath of the brawl that the Democratic leadership is not, which is trying to create a community conversation and bring people together around this issue. I said it was smart politics on his part because the leadership of Cincinnati is not doing that. They have not done that.
Because the leadership in Cincinnati is concerned about genuinely addressing the issues and not
Sure.
grandstanding
And
for
so
a
bringing
moment.
people together to talk about solutions is not genuinely addressing the issue. I'm not saying that there are multiple ways to attack the problem, right? Yes, you got to
No,
work
there
on
isn't.
and
No,
you got to work on and try to sort
there's
things
only
out.
one way, Kevin, and that's genuinely. And
Yeah,
what I saw last night wasn't genuine.
I'm not suggesting that this isn't genuine. And look, here we are, Nathan. We're all trying to second guess. Nobody is in anybody's heart and mind that can say 100% sure what the motivation is for anything that anybody is doing. How does one assess a person's genuineness? It's based on pretty much how you feel they're responding to it. Somebody can be
Well,
being
did
perfectly.
Vivek Ramaswamy meet with city leadership before he had this very public meeting? Because that
He
tells you
did.
a whole lot.
He did. He actually met with the mayor and the police chief before the forum, and he talked about that. He talked about that at the
right
forum.
before the forum.
Say that again.
Right before the forum.
I don't know what the proximity of it was before the forum, but he met with business leaders. He met with the police chief and the mayor, and he even made a statement at the forum that because he agreed with them to not make what they talked about public, he wouldn't talk about it.
He covered his bases, it sounds like.
I mean, but see,
come on now.
But see, I get why you would say that, Nathan, but this is and you're entitled to that opinion. But I'm saying that it's your opinion that it wasn't genuine. Nobody can really say that for 100%. And everybody's going to have that opinion. It's just like when the mayor wasn't in town when this happened. People are going to have their opinion for that. People are gonna stump for the mayor and defend him. Other people are going to be critical. It's wherever people are going to come down. But I'm just going to say, as leadership, people are looking for you to lead and do different things. And like it or not, Ramaswamy showed up, and people are going to remember that. People remember when you show up and when you don't.
Did he show up? Really? That's what I'm trying to say. Like you do it on River Road. Is that really showing up for Cincinnati? I mean, people can make their own decisions.
I guess people will make their own determination.
Jim and Jax, if I could say, is a pretty used quite often for meetings and stuff like that. It's not that far from downtown. It's a pretty Cincinnati tradition as far as that place goes.
Yeah. Well, again, I say, I mean, at a certain age, you can call things for what they are. You know, we can play these little games about what people thought, but I'm old enough to read the situation and I know exactly what I'm seeing. And so do other people as well. And so what happens next? Is it just going to be a one-time event because what we know is like this work, this community building work, this a everyday 24/7 type of thing. And so time will tell. Time will tell as to whether how serious and genuine they really are based upon what happens tomorrow and next week. Are we going to see Vivek working with city leadership and working with the community to try to really come up with genuine solutions? Or is he just moving on to the next campaign stop to try to grandstand for the moment? Time will tell. Time will tell. So
if he leaves Cincinnati to the hands of leadership of what they're trying to lead into and what they're trying to pass it over to, it ain't never going to work, and that'll hurt him. So if I was Vivek and he's trying to win this governor, because I would wash my hands of Cincinnati and not come back here until it's like time to campaign, because I feel like what's about to happen to Corey Bowman in the next couple months is not going to be pretty, and whoever is attaching themselves to him or the Republican Party here soon in Cincinnati, if they don't apologize, go on an apology tour, as you might say, whoever's attached to that party is going to be looking bad. So if I was Vivek, I would be like, all right, I came and did my town hall here first. I'm out. You started this, JD. You started this mess. Now you deal with it, because I'm not going to let you cause me this governorship by trying to fight your battles that you started.
And here's the other question I had as I watched it. And I didn't watch every single second of it, but I watched a significant enough to have an opinion about it. Is what is Vivek supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? You're not the governor. The governor's race isn't for a year and a half. What is he supposed to do? Like, the people who can actually do something about it are downtown. And I didn't see any of them on the stage. Those are the people who are leadership right now. Vivek is running for governor in 2026. That's a year and a half from now. So what is he supposed to do? So what are the ideas that came from this? That's number one. Number two is disingenuous, because everybody who really cares about the facts knows that this was an isolated incident. He started off by saying it was an epidemic of crime. That's just not factually true. You're grandstanding and you're putting fuel on the fire. So that's why I say it's disingenuous, because of the lies that he said. There is no epidemic of crime in Cincinnati. That is not true. It's just not true. No matter how people might want to twist it and turn it, it's just not true. What they're talking about was an isolated incident that has already been dealt with. They've already been arrested. They're about to be adjudicated and go through the system. What's the issue?
Yeah, so I think what's unavoidable in this conversation, and I think, Nathan, what the mistake that you and others make by taking that attitude, and I understand why you would say
what attitude?
Well, to poo-poo it like it was nothing.
I mean, I said, what are they supposed to do? He's not the governor. He's not an elected official.
Well, look. Here's clearly he's campaigning, and
okay,
one would say, look, Vivek Ramaswamy is a billionaire. If we want to have that, wait a minute. Let me finish my thought. Let me finish my thought, bro. Let me finish my thought.
You're right ahead.
Vivek Ramaswamy is a billionaire. So if you ask yourself, what could he do? Well, he probably has a lot of resources and connections that he could bring to bear that you don't have to be the governor to be able to do to impact Cincinnati.
Why hasn't he done it?
That's a good question for him. That's a good question. That's a really good question for him.
If there was an epidemic prior to this situation, where has he been? If there was an epidemic of crime prior to what happened during this whole incident, and he's a billionaire and he's got resources, why hasn't he used them? Why did he wait until after this happened to hold a town hall or to do anything about it?
But you got to remember, Vivek was the first person to talk to Holly. He was the first person to grab her and give her the hush money to keep your mouth shut. Don't say nothing. We got you. So he was the first month. I'm paraphrasing. He's the first one that gave the donation. Well, he gave a significant donation to keep her to the prayers and thoughts and prayers that the blessings and thoughts and prayers that she's talking about in her GoFundMe that she's talking about, that's probably at 175 or plus. He donated to that. So that's what I'm thinking. That's kept her quiet. I'm not saying it's hush money. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying.
Remind me who you're talking about, Tarris.
I'm talking about Vivek. I'm talking about Vivek Ramaswamy is the first person to speak. Vivek Ramaswamy is the first person who talked to Holly. That's the first person who put a significant amount of money into her.
Hey, Tarris, he
She's the
doesn't know
woman
who
who got
Holly is.
punched in the face.
Remind
Bill.
me who Holly is. That's
She's
all
the
I'm
woman who
asking.
got punched in the face. The woman who
The
got
woman
punched in the face.
who was kind of hit and then knocked down. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so he was the first one to contact her and to give a statement about her. Then he was the first person to donate to her campaign. So this, to me, that's why I'm saying it's called hush money. He got her to her first and said, "Hey, you keep this on the low. We can use this as a political grandstand if possible." But then he didn't realize that his buddy JD dropped the ball, so that's why he went the direction last night. Because if it would have went in his direction with the girl, the Holly girl, and she was truly playing her out to be that she was just standing there and she got knocked out cold, oh man, the Republican Party would have had a field day.
So,
with
Tarris,
her.
you're saying she deserved it. She wasn't a victim. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. And that's what every single last one of you YT people try to do. I never said that came out of my mouth. I never said that came out of my mouth. I never said. But did out of my mouth, did I say that she deserved to have that?
No, but you said the other.
But you said so. You're assuming, just like all white people do when black people talk their truths, you start sticking out what your truths are. What you think I'm saying? I'm saying if the truth of the matter came out that if she was just standing.
What is the truth that you're talking about?
Let me finish. You won't let me finish. Let me finish. If the truth of the matter is that she was just standing there minding her own business, and somebody walked up to her and knocked her out cold. That would have been more of a story than, okay, she was in the mix, she was doing this.
What is the truth about her? That's all I'm asking. Tell me
knows?
Your version.
Who knows?
You don't know.
Who
well,
knows?
what she said is that she was.
Not true, but
she said she was waiting for an Uber. I believe she said she was waiting for an Uber, and then I think she saw what was going on. She was trying to break it up, and she got hit in the mouth.
Right.
That's it.
Which,
that's it.
You know, is unfortunate.
The narrative. And the narrative is she was just standing there and somebody came and attacked her. This mob,
is that not a
angry
true
mob.
Tarris? Is that not true? That narrative.
Was she a part of the party that went to the dinner with the people the Russians? Was she in? Come on, man.
I'm asking you. You say the narrative is false that they're putting out about her being cold cocked. What is the truth? If you have what's your version?
My version of the truth from the videos that I've seen that there was a skirmish going on. She was in the mix and mixing up with a female beside the guy who punched her. That everything broke up. She walked away. She returned back in, and then that's when the contact happened. He did not deserve to hit her. He should not hit her. He should not have hit her. But she was not standing there lollygolly looking around. Oh my gosh, what's going on? What's going on? Oh my God, I'm attacked. That's not what happened, and that's not the story that people need to keep putting out there. When the video comes out, that's my whole thing with the Republicans. After they put this false narrative out there and that's why she's not saying anything. She has an obligation to tell the truth too. I was there. I was drunk. I was in the middle of this situation that I had no business being into, and then.
But we don't know that, Tarris. You don't know that. I mean to say that she was drunk. You don't know that. That's not a. You're speculating on that.
So everybody on here is speculating. JD Vance is speculating.
But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that it's right. And this is the problem. I mean, this is the problem with this incident from the beginning. And I say this, that, the social media, public opinion don't wait for the facts. They don't wait for all of the evidence. They don't wait for all of the testimony to come out. People put their stake in the ground without even half the information sometimes that you need to put forth a solid opinion. And this is part of the problem, is people put their stakes in the ground. And then when facts do come out and the real does come out, then people double down. Like they refuse to accept the facts, or they don't want to believe it because they've already staked their claim. I think leaders, and this is where the failure of the leadership was, is you can say, hey, this is a terrible event, and you don't need to take it any farther. Whether it's Ramaswamy, JD Vance, or any of these other people, you need to hold your powder, hold your comments, hold your declarative statements until you have all of the facts, because the facts are coming out, and it makes a difference when you have the whole picture, what your statements are. There's some people who get way in front of their skis on this stuff and say stuff that they shouldn't be saying, and it's not factually accurate, right? And that's on all sides.
But
That's
Kevin,
on all sides.
you just described Vivek. That's my point.
I agree with you on that.
You reached out to Holly, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't reach out to her, but the investigation hasn't even ended yet.
Yes.
We don't know what her involvement was or was not. I think all of us have sympathy for her for what we saw, and it was wrong. But that's why are you reaching out to a person that was involved with something and assuming that she was the victim before the Cincinnati Police Department and the city of Cincinnati has even finished their investigation? Like, to do that tells me, yeah.
Haven't they is one of the indictments of the guy or person who cold cocked her? Has that person been indicted? Because if so, they have done their investigation.
I believe so. I think he said that he felt like he has schizophrenia or something like that. I believe that's what his lawyer said.
No, that's not.
That was a different guy.
Yeah.
That was it. Okay, thank you for the correction.
They got the guy that hit him. And I've done something over the weekend. I want to coin this on this program. And Phil, stay out my business for about 30 seconds. Remember back whenever
I promised to stay out of your. Oh, I guess I'm sorry, Tarris. Sorry, go ahead.
Remember back in the day when Donald Trump, whenever the Central Park Five, they had the Central Park Five when Donald Trump was so adamant about how they were dirty and they did this stuff, and he took out these ads and all that kind of stuff, and everybody was like, Donald Trump's a racist because he did that, and I was kind of blew it under the rug. Same thing happened right here, right now with the Cincinnati Five. I'm calling them the Cincinnati Five right now. The Cincinnati Five that have already been brought into justice. Black men, where's the white guy? Nowhere to be found. But you got the Cincinnati Five that were involved in the Cincinnati.
Okay, what crime did the white guy commit?
Broken right assault when he smacked a dude in the face. Instigating, walking up into that's not a crime of smacking somebody in the face.
There's no crime of instigating I'm aware of.
What is wrong with white people?
Never heard of that crime.
I will never. In my life, I have never. There's not a crime of walking up and smacking somebody in the face.
It depends. It depends how hard he hit him. It might be
it depends
assault.
On this.
It
depends on this, and it depends on this. This is Phil. You guys talk about black fatigue. We're tired of white fatigue whenever it's point blank in your face. This is an open and shut case that dude instigated this whole thing. But instead of that,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because somebody got hit in the face that didn't like it. We had to deal with Breonna Taylor. We had to deal with George. We had to deal with all this stuff, and now we have to sit back. This is what I don't like about Democrats. Republicans. No way. I ain't gonna rest. I'm gonna lay my plane here, but I ain't gonna rest on this one. There is no way that this shit is gonna.
Can I share a brief legal insight? I think I mentioned last time that there is a lesser crime, a felony. I think it's a 4th-degree felony versus felonious assault, 2nd degree. And essentially, what it says is you committed serious physical harm to somebody, but you did it under the stress of one thing or another. Now, it is one thing to say, and Tarris is correct in this sense, that it's very possible, and I think you're ultimately going to have these guys actually plead out to aggravated assault, if I had to predict. Because it's fair to say, because of the slap and whatever, the N-word and all, whatever was said, that this put those guys under severe emotional stress, okay? And that's probably what their defense is going to be to felonious assault. But they're still going to be guilty of aggravated assault. And I kind of suspect that's what they're going to try to work out as a plea deal.
So I would say that I kind of agree with what Phil is saying here, and I would
more than I can hope for.
I would encourage everybody to kind of go look at. There was a guest column that was written by a former Ohio Deputy Attorney General, and he sort of broke down this whole notion of the use of racial slurs and fighting words and what the law says. And here's where I think a lot of people have to come down. Look, I get people's emotions are high. There's a difference between what you feel like something should be and what the law actually says and what you can actually charge somebody with. And I think that's what Phil is trying to explain. And that's what this Deputy Attorney General said. There'll be black people out there who will say, because he was using the N-word, that was insightful. That was this, that, or the other. But you got to look at the First Amendment and what is protected speech and what is exactly considered by law to be fighting words or insightful words. And I don't think that in this case, simply saying that the use of the N-word is a green light to beat somebody down. That is not a defense that's probably going to work in court.
Isn't that a hate crime though?
Huh?
Like, if I assault you while I am using racial slurs against you, isn't that
that's yes. If I assault you, right? And so as Phil,
being smacked in the face is assault, right?
But wait a minute.
Not necessarily.
So as Phil is saying, is what is the definition of assault, right? What is the definition of assault? And that's what that is what a judge or a prosecutor or anybody who deals with the law is going to look at. It doesn't matter that you feel like
and that's what Dre said last week. Exactly.
If that's not what the law says, that's not what they're going to be able to charge him with.
Dre said he's probably guilty of disorderly conduct.
And that's exactly what
assault.
That's exactly what this attorney general said. He said that most guy is guilty of disorderly conduct, and that was the same thing Brother Dre said when he was on the program. So you got a former attorney general, a former prosecutor, and a former police officer all saying to you that at best this guy is likely to get charged with disorderly conduct. I mean, these are people who know the law.
Go ahead, Tarris, but it wouldn't be the first time a lot of smart people were wrong, though, Kevin.
Yeah,
wouldn't be the first time.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see.
No, we already see. It's not going to be assault. It's not going to be called a hate crime. I think it's because of the racial makeup of the people who were actually physically assaulted beforehand. I just find all of a sudden
it's not a hate crime. If you want me to tell you the definition, it's not a hate crime.
It's not a hate crime to physically assault somebody and then use the N-word.
It's not a legal assault. That's why it can't be a hate crime.
Go ahead, Terry.
What I'm about to say real quick. The person at question, the Russian at question, I believe his name is Alexander Turvinsky. I have right here from public record, and everybody likes to bring up the black people's past. This dude in 2013 PO and punched somebody, assaulted somebody outside a bar. So he's got a record of doing this same thing that he just hit this black man. It's public record too. And if you go right here where he went and got taken off his record, he had to pay I think a restitution $1,300 or something like that.
And that can be brought up by the defense. The guy the lawyers who are defending the people who knocked him down, beat him up, they can bring that up on cross-examination. Right. That's true.
Phil, so what I'm saying, and I'm going to say this as calmly as I can so you'll hear me. These people who were who engaged, he engaged these people after they de-escalated a few times, smacked somebody. That ain't assault, even though he's got record of doing it before.
No, it's not.
That's why. Okay.
And by the way, the guy
by law, that's cool. By law, that's cool. But by
what's an assault then?
Social justice and what's right and what's wrong. This is wrong.
Question.
If this guy can repeatedly go and start trouble, if he can repeatedly go and start trouble and nothing to see here, then the black people, they're bringing up their records because they reacted and they're bringing up, oh, these dudes were just glad out of prison. These dudes were just this. These dudes got a criminal record. The lawlessness. What about the lawlessness of the white individual who started the whole?
Phil, I want to hear what you have to say about this, but to me, I could smack somebody in the face and put you in a coma. I could put you in a coma.
No, that's different. Here's the definition. You want me to give you the definition?
I would love to hear it.
It's causing physical harm, as opposed to a felony assault is causing serious physical harm, which can be defined a number of ways. I don't know for example, if when the white guy hit him and caused, let's say, a growth or a big bruise or broke a tooth, that would be assault. But just doing that, if that's all it was, and I don't know, I wasn't there, that's just not meet the definition of assault under the law. That's why all these people, as Kevin said, that's why all these people who are either lawyers or prosecutors, whatever, are saying, sorry, it's not, it's disorderly conduct.
Yetta Baylor, one of our crew members, is saying something different. She writes, how is using a racial slur against a black person not provocation when blowing cigarette smoke in somebody's face?
Provocation is not a crime.
Provocation is not a crime.
There's no such crime.
So I don't know. I don't even know what to do with that. So I'm trying to understand this assault thing. So
He
Phil,
may be a
if I
bad
slap
person,
you,
he may be wrong, but he didn't commit a crime by using the N-word.
so if I
As
slap
Kevin
you,
said, it's free speech. It's terrible
We're talking about the
speech, but
smack.
it is
you
free.
don't have free speech. You cannot yell fire in a crowded movie
That,
theater.
That's
so
different.
that's Nathan. This is why you need to go back and read. This is why you need to go back and read that piece that I was telling you about, because the guy explains it very eloquently. That Victoria Parks, when she used that was the whole thing behind it. Is she's wrong. That used to be the law, but that is no longer the law anymore. And so again, I would encourage you to go
When did
back
this
and
change?
look and go back and read his piece, because he lays it out very clearly about how that yelling fire in a crowded theater example that Victoria Parks tried to use is wrong in this case, and it doesn't apply, and it's not the law. And that's what I'm saying about everybody is entitled. And I know Danietta, who's been part of the crew in the past, she's on here and she's an attorney as well. And I know she's made a couple comments on there that might be worth bringing up. But that's why I think it's important. That's why I say you got to separate what you feel from what the law is. And I think that is where that's where Black folks are setting themselves up
I don't think
for
so at all.
disappointment. I really do.
I think it comes down to in the interpretation of the law, because that makes no sense to me in the world. So you're telling me I can slap you across the face and that's not assault?
Depends. If you cause
Depends on the
physical
extent of
harm,
the
it's
damage.
assault. If you
Who
just slap
determines
him and you
physical
don't cause
harm?
harm, it's not an assault.
What do you?
A
How do
doctor-
you determine psychological and physical harm?
No,
You might have
physical. It has to be
PTSD.
physical, not psychological.
It's still harm caused by this smack and your
I'm telling you what the
physicality.
law says. You have to cause physical harm to be guilty of assault. I'm sorry you don't like it.
How
That
do
is-
you
that is the
determine
law.
physical harm, though, is what I'm saying, Phil. If you slap me across the face,
Yeah.
I might not feel it until a week from now.
But you
might
have to
just-
have some evidence. You have to have some medical evidence of it, Nathan. So
Here's
yes.
what it sounds like to me.
So if somebody slaps you across the face, and then a day later you having neck pain and all of that, and you go to your doctor and you verify it and you take it to the police and say, I want to file charges. Here's what my doctor is. You've got a case. But if you have no physical evidence, right, it's the same way as if you and I are just pushing each other. If we're shoving and squaring off, that's not going to result in any kind of assault charges. A shove is not an assault. If I've actually not done any physical harm to you, that's not a crime that is punishable. That's why in most of these cases, in a lot of these fights, the police don't even do it, because it's not anything that you could that would stand up in court. I mean, look, you can shake your head and you can shake your head and not like it. And this is what I'm saying.
It's not about not liking it. It just don't make sense to me. It sounds to me like when Black people get smacked across the face and get called the N-word, it's no big deal. It's not.
I mean, it's a big deal. It's just
That's
not
what
a
it sounds
crime.
like to me.
It's not.
It's no big deal. Just get over it.
Crime.
Just get over it. The N-word is not provocation. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like a completely double standard. Because I'll tell you one thing. If you walk up to a police officer and slap them, your ass is going to get charged with assault.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that to a person of law enforcement.
If you walked up to a VIP, let's take police officer out of it, a very important person in Cincinnati, you're going to get charged with assault. They're gonna throw the book.
If you don't cause physical harm, you're gonna be found not guilty.
Okay, let somebody slap one of Cincinnati's favorite families across the face and see what happened. I guarantee
maybe you should try to play that out. But
I'm not gonna do it. No, I already know what's gonna happen. Y'all the ones who think it's gonna be simple assault. You know all the favorite last names, the people that read the VIP. You walk up to one of them and slap them across the face just like that Black man was slapped, and I guarantee you're gonna get charged to the nth degree. It's gonna be assault and any other thing that they can charge you with. But when it's a Black person, oh, you got to understand the law, get over it. It just sounds ludicrous to me. Ludicrous.
Well, ludicrous. I'm not saying that anything that look, I'm not going to argue with you or disagree with you on any of that. I'm just telling you what is likely to happen in this situation based on evidence.
We know because
you can feel however you want to feel about it, but that ain't going to change how the law is going to deal with it. That's all I'm saying. And if you're expecting anything more than that, you're only setting yourself up for disappointment, because they're not going to charge this guy with the same thing that they're charged the people who are. Get that out your mind right now. It ain't going to happen. I'm telling you.
So we shouldn't fight for what's right because we don't think it's going to happen.
I'm not saying don't fight for what's right. I'm just saying you're fighting a losing battle. You're going to lose that battle.
Well, that's our ancestors. People told them they was fighting a losing battle, but they did it anyway.
Yeah, well,
I think you're talking about.
I'm not here to tell anybody what they shouldn't do as an activist. Hey, do what
it's not even activist.
Do that. But I'm just telling you based on the facts that I see and what I know the law to be, the outcome that people are hoping for is not the one they're going to get.
Yeah. Donyetta writes, assault and battery are different. At minimum, the slap is a battery under Ohio law. You cannot legally slap someone. And that, I'm not a lawyer, but what she says rings true to me. You just can't walk up to people and slap them and then you can walk away because it doesn't leave a welt. That's ridiculous.
Then change the law. Change the law.
First, I got to dig deep into it and interpret it for myself before I even do all of that, because I think you guys' interpretation is off. Now, I didn't read that opinion piece. I will go back and read it. I haven't read it yet, but that makes no sense to me whatsoever. You talk about lawlessness. That's lawlessness. You can just smack somebody, and if they don't have a welt or some kind of physical indication of it, you can just walk away. I don't believe that one bit.
It's a matter of what the charge is, Nathan. I don't think anybody is saying that what he is doing is legal. It's a matter of what you can charge him with, right? You're not going to charge him with felonious assault. You're not. He's not going to face the same.
I'm not saying it's going to be felonious assault, but to tell me that that's not a crime to slap somebody, I don't believe that. I don't care what anybody says.
So it is a crime.
If they charge him with disorderly conduct at best, you're gonna be satisfied with that.
What I'll be satisfied with is this: if somebody slaps me across the face,
and if they say that's disorderly conduct, what you gonna say?
This is a stand your ground state. If somebody slaps me across the face, I've got no obligation to retreat. I can defend myself. And so if somebody
what about the other 5 or 6 people that he didn't
those
slap?
Are different scenarios. I'm just talking about this guy, the guy that got slapped in the face. If you slap me in my face and I feel endangered, I feel as if
he probably did have a right to slap him in the face, but he didn't have the right to knock him to the ground and stomp on him.
Why not? You slap me in the face, I don't know what you're going to do.
Let me explain.
Yeah.
As far as like self-defense goes, you have a right to respond to force in proportion, but you don't have a right if a guy slaps you to pull a gun out and shoot him. Okay, you just
I'm not suggesting that you do.
Well,
but you have a right to physically defend yourself.
To stomp the guy on the ground. You don't have that right. It's disproportional to the original force. That's what the law is.
That makes sense to me. You're right. But Phil, if I get assaulted first and I'm defending myself, I don't know what you're gonna do. I don't know if you're going to get off the ground and pull a gun on me or pull a knife on me. You already smacked me in the face for no reason. So if I'm a citizen who's been assaulted, then I have a right, in my opinion.
I would bet in this situation, I would guess if the guy who got slapped went ahead and smacked and punched the guy who slapped him, even though it's probably a more serious thing than slap, I don't think he would have been charged for that.
Right. No, I'm not saying like all this.
To throw him on the ground and stomp him, not to mention the guy, whoever hit that white girl and knocked her down. I mean, there's no way you're going to say, that's
all they care about. That's all they can see. That's all they can see is that money shot. All they can see is the money shot.
It was terrible.
Put truth. It was terrible. But what they're trying to do with that money shot is not going to work. We can argue this down, and all, like Kevin said, we all have to do what we feel like is right as activists. What I personally have come to do is I've forgiven these people. I've forgiven JD Vance. I've personally forgiven all these people because that hurt my feelings. You know what I'm saying? We're all human. We're all human. That lie that JD Vance came out and told, that hurt. That hurt because I know the direct implication it's going to have on black people. Because 5 black people are charged. The white instigator is not charged. So this further pours gasoline on white supremacy, and they're trying to use Cincinnati, like we've been saying, as a war zone to start white supremacy. So, that being said, I forgive JD Vance because he knows not what he does. So it's our job as the black community and
you
allies.
JD Vance. For
That's
what?
what you're supposed to do. You gotta forgive them.
That's what
You
you're
gotta
supposed to
forgive
do.
them.
First off,
That's the Christian
first off,
side of
Terry.
it.
Hey,
That's
why
the
don't you
Christian
start
side
by
of it.
forgiving me for all the mean things I
Yes,
said
start
about
by
you? Why don't
forgiving
you start
Phil.
with that before you get to JD Vance?
Right.
Well, I'm just saying,
Forgive
like
Phil
let's
first.
get past all that we know that just like
Get
we
past
know
all
the
that.
hold on, I got a great point. Just like we
He's
know
the
it was
pastor.
the
Let's let
Russian.
Kevin decide this.
No, hold on, and after that we can say after we know that the Russian was the catalyst that started the whole situation, and white people are never going to accept that fact that if that Russian wouldn't have hit the black man, none of this stuff would have went into that way.
I'll accept
If JD,
that.
hold on,
Doesn't
let me
change the
finish. Right. If
He's
JD
agreeing
Vance
with
wouldn't have came on, if JD Vance wouldn't have came on and said in the beginning of this thing and started the narrative that this angry mob singly attacked this white innocent family couple that was doing nothing wrong and set that bar into motion, all of this is on his hands. All of this on JD Vance's hands, because it wouldn't have been national news. That's my take on
It
it.
wasn't just him, though.
No,
Everybody
Terry.
it wasn't just him.
It
In
wasn't
fact,
just
I
him,
think
though,
it was.
Terry.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was even
to me,
JD.
he owns it. He owns
I don't
it.
even think it was JD Vance. I think it was Elon Musk who was the first one to sort of
Then
amplify
Fox
it.
News and
That
Newsmax,
that that that,
OAN.
that
Who was
caught
the
the
first
attention
one to
of
make? Who's
everybody
the
else.
first one? It was JD Vance, and then Elon Musk re-cheated the
No.
picture of the money shot.
JD Vance's comments came out after that, because I think he was at some sort of campaign event here in Ohio when the news you got to remember, Tarris, this was already circulating and had become viral way before JD Vance had said anything. And again, part of the reason why it became viral was because Elon Musk amplified it on X and in other places, and then Fox picked it up. So JD Vance came. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, in terms of, he was not the catalyst of why this thing sort of took off. He was just one more coal on a fire that was already burning when he added to it. And I agree with you. He should have kept his mouth shut, which is what I said earlier about these elected officials. It's like, he even came out and said, like, yeah, I haven't seen all of the video or know all of the facts. And then he went on to comment. And to me, it's like, well, if you ain't seen all the video and you don't know all the facts, like, what comment do you have that you can add that would be anything constructive? Just shut up until you have actually seen the video or you got you some facts. But as I said, social media, the court of public opinion, none of that waits for all of the facts, the testimony, and everything to come out. They just want to lay their stake and what they feel and what they want to say based on what, and none of it is right, no matter who is doing it. And I always hold to, you can have an opinion, but it's not a great opinion if it's not an informed opinion, one that's based in fact. It's just how you think or feel, and that doesn't mean that it's valid. And so I think we all feel strongly about this, but I still say that there is still a lot of information gaps that are out there that if we had it, it might confirm how we feel or it might change how we feel, and we got to be open to the possibility of new information coming forward or details or facts coming out that's going to change where we are. If we're where we're at and we're saying it don't matter what come out, this is where I'm at, then it's kind of useless to have a conversation with you at that point, because you are where you are.
That's where most people are at, though, because because it was one thing, and then after the new information came out, it becomes another thing, and then after the new situation comes out, it's another thing. They keep moving the goalposts every single time. It went from they jumped on an innocent white couple to the white guy smacked them first. Oh, well, they shouldn't have beat him that bad. Oh, and they shouldn't have hit that white woman, which they shouldn't have. And then they're like, oh, well, the white woman was in the middle of it fighting too, and she could have potentially been throwing hands and gotten a mix of it, and she wasn't as innocent as what they say. Oh, well, she shouldn't get hit by this. Well, how about we start taking accountability and we say, hey, we was in the wrong place at the wrong time, did the wrong things. We didn't want to take this thing and we wanted to spiral out of control. Let's find some healing in it right now. People start telling the truth. Because our community is the one that they're running this experiment on. Your guys' community, Cincinnati, is where they're running this experiment on. I mean, I take it personal because I'm right across the bridge, and I love Cincinnati, man. I'm there every single week. I love it, and I never feel uncomfortable. But you know when I felt uncomfortable? This weekend, white people looking at me scared. White people walking around like, I heard this white lady say, Dogs know when to be scared of somebody. To me, and I'm at the flea market, I'm like, oh, and I've never felt that way. So that's why I'm talking about the healing, because they're going to try to take Cincinnati to try to get Corey Bowman elected and try to divide your city between black and white. And the mistake that J.D. Vance is making is he doesn't understand that there's a lot of people from the Underground Railroad who migrated up here, who escaped slavery and stayed here in Cincinnati, which made this place a bed for foundational black Americans who vote. 50% of Cincinnatians, and those 50% of Cincinnatians, they vote. So you gotta have, in order for Corey Bowman to even get a chance and to win this election, he's got to have 10% of the black vote. Let's say just 10% of the black vote. If he has a chance to win, I think that Cincinnati is a rebuttal to their false attempt of dog walk this mother lover and make him 2% and find out what the biggest margin of defeat has ever been in a Democrat-Republican versus margin, and shoot for that number. Don't just shoot to beat Corey Bowman now. Make a statement that when you come for black people in this proportion, whatever the law say, Phil, you might be right. They might not be able to charge them with anything, but you know what we can do as a black community? Go to the polls, whoop Corey Bowman's butt, whooping. Like you.
Hold it! I thought you were behind him the last time. I'm all confused.
I'm a black man. See, that's where white people
you kept talking
don't
about
get it.
Corey Bowman. I thought you.
How do we always wind up back on him? We talk about Corey Bowman on here more than anybody. Like, I don't think we talk about anybody on this podcast more than Corey Bowman. I'm trying to understand.
Much more than he
always wind up coming back to that dude.
Hey,
so y'all took everything. You took everything that I just said and took it back to that point.
Daniela has a question for you, Phil. She writes, how are the black people charged with felonious assault when they didn't have any weapons? ? Answer that question, Phil.
Be happy to. You don't need a weapon to cause serious physical harm. You can cause serious physical harm by hitting somebody, stomping on them. It isn't whether you have a weapon or not. Now, the weapon can play a role in how it's charged and this and that, but it's serious physical harm, no matter how it's caused.
Okay. So who had the serious physical harm?
Well,
where was the serious bodily harm?
Well, as far as the woman goes, from what I can see of her injuries, that would constitute serious physical harm. As far as the guy goes, I mean, I didn't examine him, but it looked like from the way he was.
It looked like.
Well, excuse me. I didn't investigate this. The cops investigated. I would tell you right now, if they looked at all the facts and talked to witnesses and they say, well, somehow, even though they stomped this guy over and over, he just didn't have any serious injury. Yeah, he might have a defense. I'm just speculating from what I saw that there was some serious physical injury to him. I could be wrong, but it looked like it to me.
There's a phenomenon in the medical industry whereby medical professionals don't believe that black people feel a certain amount of pain. Like, this is documented. And I'm wondering, yeah, it's true.
It has nothing to do with how much pain you feel.
Yeah, it is. It's the perception of it. So I'm seeing some of that in the way we talk about this. It's like, he only got slapped in the face. It's no big deal. I'm like, you got slapped.
Nobody's saying it's not a big deal. We're just saying it's not a crime.
We don't know what the long-term consequences, physical or psychological, that could have been caused by that. But here's what I've asked myself. I've asked myself, like, if I was in this situation, like, what would I do? Like, if I was the black guy that was going back and forth with the Russian guy, like, how would I handle this? And I came to the conclusion that this is the reason why I don't go back and forth with people. I ain't going back and forth with you. I ain't doing none of that. I'll say it again. I'm scary. I'm walking away or I'm running away. And I'm going to try to run away again. And after that, buddy, I'm going through you. But that's the way I deal with things. I'm not arguing with nobody. I don't care if they're bigger than me, smarter than me, white, green, alien. And it makes no difference. I'm too old to be arguing with somebody out in the streets. If I have an issue with you, I'm gonna call the boys, let them handle it, and I'm going on with my life. And that's how I would have handled it. I'm not even going that far with you, where we going back and forth and squaring up. Who does that? I did that in my 20s on the basketball court. I'm way too old to be doing that with any man at all. If you pose a threat to me that I think is deadly, well, then I'll deal with it that way. But if you just jaw jacking and all this kind of stuff, I'm out of there. I'm out of there. I'm going home as quickly as I can, because things like this can escalate real quick and it gets out of hand. That's how I would have dealt with it. But
But
You know,
Nathan,
everybody's different.
you're speaking as a rational, sober individual.
Sober.
Let's not forget that we talk about drunk people. That, and again, I mean, I'm not trying to disparage anybody who's charged with this, but if you look at the backgrounds of some of these individuals, I'm just being honest, who've been charged in this, you know, some of the background is questionable. And when you talk about people who might engage in something like this and people who would, I mean, some of the details and the backgrounds on these individuals help you understand how some of the people that are involved in this could have gotten involved versus you, me, or anybody who might be listening to this podcast right now. Okay. I think those are important details to consider. I'm not trying to disparage
Like what
anybody else.
details?
Huh?
What are you talking about? Like what details? Like prior history or something like that?
Yeah, prior history, prior criminal histories, mental, perhaps some mental health issues that are present there. I'm saying that there's stuff that says that some of these folks ain't Nathan Ivey, who would have walked away from a situation like this. Okay.
See, that's
and the
my
same
point,
way
though.
with, and potentially the same way with the person involved. I don't know enough about his background, but I think we also know when you throw alcohol in, people are not thinking rationally and being the best version of themselves when they're drunk in these situations. So, you know, to kind of compare yourself and how you will respond to it to maybe how these particular individuals and that's
I'm not
why
comparing. I just ask myself, like, I'm trying to see myself in that situation. How would I handle? Like I told you, I'm running. If I gotta run, I'm running because
And
I
I
don't
think-
want no smoke because this kind of stuff happens. And the other reason is I treat everybody with respect
yes.
all the time because you never know what somebody's going through. People lose jobs, they lose family members, they lose relationships, they get the internet bill, they get the internet cut off. You never know what kind of baggage that people are dealing with. That's why I move in a certain way. I try to treat people with respect across the board because you never know. You never know who you're dealing with. You never know. They might take their life out on you. Like you might get something that's not even for you, it's for somebody else, but you jump in the mix on some dumb stuff and now you get all of that. And I'm very aware of that and cognizant of that when I'm moving around people. And that's why I say this comes down to just respect, just respecting other people, de-escalating situations, you know, having a little bit of compassion and empathy, even if somebody tee you off a little bit. And it just
But
seems
you're
like
assuming everybody
nobody
got
wants
those
to
skills,
de-escalate
though,
anymore.
Nathan.
It's all about, I got to get back on you and I'm going to show you this and I'm going to show you that. And it ends up with you looking sad on the local news because you just got charged. And now your whole life changed over something that isn't really that important.
But Nathan, you are hitting on something that's very critical. Is you assume that everybody has those types of skills, social skills.
No, I'm not. I realize that people. I'm saying how I approach it.
No, I get that. I get that. But obviously we're talking about people who don't have those types of social skills or elected not to display them in that instance. And I think that that's the very real reality of what we talk about in some of these situations is some people lack that you're speaking as a thinking person who is going through these mental manipulations. And the fallacy is to assume that everybody uses that same mental acuity to assess a situation. Some people don't or refuse to. Some people don't have those skills, and they find themselves in these situations. A thinking person would say to themselves before they even enter into it, even if it's just like your brain is probably the quickest computer on the face of the earth. You have the ability in seconds to make assessments about what is a good decision and what isn't a good decision. But some people don't and make wrong choices.
And that alcohol.
Everybody involved in this situation made bad decisions and should be held accountable for those decisions. Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Can I tell Rapone, Tina Nicole? She said again, brawls like this happen in small bars and rural towns every day. No one is charged. When I used to go out and party all the time, this was a regular thing that we seen here. This was, and I've been in bar fights on both ends of it. Where this is a regular thing for alcoholics. It's regular. You ask anybody that's out there that late at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, they're waiting for something to pop off. Either you're going to F or F. You're going to F or fight. That's what you're doing. If you ain't got no lady on your side, and then the way this whole situation comes around, where the white Russian is apparently kicking cars, and then he squares up with one and has a white guy on one side and a white guy on another side. If that right there don't look like to me that they're trying to start a confrontation, then I don't know what does. So we look at all that kind of stuff and try to fight. I've come to realization that white tea people just don't care. Whenever we're talking, wherever we're expounding our points to them, articulating our points to them that hit home and tell us from how we feel, where they show us a picture of the white girl, and we show a picture of George Floyd, and like, oh, George Floyd was a criminal. We're like, well, how do we know this white girl didn't do anything? Oh, she was a white girl. They don't care. So I'm trying to figure out, where do we go from there?
I would just, that makes me, I want to push back on just a little bit, because I have seen, if you want to use the term good white folks, all white people don't look at every situation the same. That is just not true. Now, you might be generalizing to be true, but I just want to give the space for, there's a lot of white folks out there that are woke, right? And they understand this situation. I see the responses on Facebook, and they are appalled, just like you want to say, generally speaking, black people are. And then you got some black people that's like, hey, no, these folks was acting like animals down there, and they deserve what they get. So I just want to create that space to not generalize, even though it's a tool of communication. I understand it, and that's not what you're trying to do. But it's some white folks out here looking at this situation like, nah, that was wrong. And they're looking at it accurately, and they're not looking at it trying to blow it up and make it something more than what it is. And you got some black people that's just like, JD Vance, if you want to use that, or Vivek, and they're trying to make it out like it's the worst thing in the world, which, again, for the victims, it is. Obviously, if that was my wife that got punched in the face, I'm on 1,000.
Absolutely.
I'm on 1 billion.
Absolutely.
So I can't take that away from them and try to.
But if it was one of my white friends,
that's a very real thing. What's that?
If it was one of my white friends that was with us, smacked, we would all it was the same thing. If it was a white dude who was assimilated black, you got the beard and got the black girlfriend, because some of these white dudes be pulling some bad black girls. I'd be like, man, we'll give her back. But it's one of them. And what if he got smacked? It would have been the same result. So it's really not a racial, like when you break it down into that. So I'm not saying black or white in that aspect. I was generalizing, and thank you, Nathan, for clearing that up.
Yeah, it's a lot of good people across the board, and I just want to make sure we give that space for people in terms of recognizing them, because we don't win and we vilify everybody. Yes. we can't win like that. Everybody is not against us, and for the folks that want to ride on the side that I believe in, I want to make sure that we got some space for them, because we need you.
Yeah.
We need you. 100%.
And Nathan, that's a very big point in terms of broadly generalizing things. Like, part of the problem that I have with this whole conversation is this conversation about black people. Like, and I've said this a few times on this podcast. Like, if you want to talk about those black people who were involved in that incident, talk about those black people who were involved in that incident. But don't try to take what those black people did and apply that to black people in general. And I don't think black people need, and I understand why they do it, because they feel like white people do exactly that. Like, they project the behavior, the certain bad behavior that some black people might engage in on the whole. And I've said that anybody who does that, just like we have to be careful as black people, as you just said, of trying to put on every white person the bad actions of people who hold racism and prejudice in their heart, because there are quite a few white people out there who don't have that sentiment. And so I think we have to be equally careful as black people not to do that to white people. Be very specific. Like, I'm talking to the racist white folks. So if that's you, if you wear that shoe, then you take what I say and you run with that. That's who I'm talking to, the racist white people. If that don't apply to you, then don't take offense to what I'm about to say. And so I don't, in no way do I feel like the behavior of what anybody in that situation did reflects on me as a black person or other black people that I know. And I'm not going to allow anybody white to place that on me. And if they do, I'm going to let them know. So we have to begin to talk about, and this is what, Phil, this going back to the earlier healing conversation. If you listen to the dialogue that's going on here, black people who seem to be resistant are
resistant to what?
Well, what white people would categorize as resistance. In other words,
you mean resisting that these guys were guilty? I don't know what you mean by resisting.
But not even that they're guilty, but this whole notion of
defensive.
Yeah,
runaway slaves, Phil.
You mean like Tarris?
Underground Railroad over in Cincinnati when they escaped from freedom. The Cincinnati blacks are like that. They're not going to just sit there and take it. That's why they ran from slavery to come over to Cincinnati and stay. They're foundational blacks. They're resistant. They're not the type of blacks that are going to sit there and take and turn the other cheek. That's why dude got what he got. If he could have went somewhere else, but go ahead, Kevin. I just want to interject that. I don't think Phil.
No. I mean exactly what Tarris just did there is this 400 years of slavery and oppression and Jim Crow and discrimination and unequal justice that comes with us in every one of these situations. And it becomes a part of the conversation because it's never been adequately dealt with or healed from. And so in every one of these conversations, it can become incredibly difficult sometimes to even keep the conversation focused on the particular incident or the details of an incident, because what will always come into the conversation is myriad other instances of injustice where black people have felt like they haven't gotten the same treatment. And that's what makes these conversations so difficult to have, is because you're not just talking about the downtown Cincinnati brawl when you're talking to black people about this. You're bringing a whole bunch of history into that conversation as well that has never been dealt with, that unfortunately I think sometimes can pollute the conversation and make it difficult for us to be able to speak with each other on the same plane. I think it's how we wind up talking past each other in these situations instead of being able to reach some kind of common agreement.
And that's why I say that healing is very important. And until we can get to healing, everything else is garbage. Until we can get to healing, we need to make what they want the most the furthest thing that they can touch. They want that mayorship. They want to flip the natty. We need to flip these nuts. That's why the approach that they need to take, whatever they do.
As Ronald Reagan said, there you go again.
Hey, Nathan's reaction was classic right there.
We are a family show. Again, I'm always talking. Might be listening with the kids, and they might be picking up children from after school programs. So let's just be aware of that.
May I just say, I do not disagree with anything that Kevin just said.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So now let me bring it full circle. So having said all of that, and I didn't watch all of it and I wasn't there, but the sense I got was that what happened last night with Vivek was more about pouring gasoline on the flames rather than trying to put them out. That's just a feeling I got. I wasn't there. What I hope is that I think Vivek has a great chance of becoming the next governor. What I hope is that he is genuine about what he says. He genuinely cares about dealing with crime and people feeling safe. I mean, the man's a billionaire and an entrepreneur. If he becomes the next governor, I hope he brings that kind of energy and opens doors for the next people, the next generation, create the next generation of millionaires and billionaires. I hope that's what happens. And I'm just going to leave it like that. At this point, try to give everybody a chance. But the energy I got from last night, it just didn't feel like it was a lot of healing going on. But if the people who were there got something out of it that's positive, that's good enough for me. Here's what I will say. I think this is not just about trying to turn the natty red. I also feel like this is a distraction from the Epstein files. I feel like Republicans would rather talk about anything other than the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell, who is one of the most notorious sexual predators of our lifetime, was just moved to a minimum security prison facility. How did that happen? And
Well,
what is
I'll tell you how it happened. I'll
what
tell
is
you
that
how it
for?
happened. It happened because Trump sent his personal attorney down there, also the deputy attorney general. And I have no doubt that there was perhaps a deal worked out where she doesn't say anything bad about Trump, or even that she says that Biden brings in some Democrats that were hooked up with him, and in return, she gets a much easier prison environment. Not to mention the possibility or the promise of a pardon down the road. So there's no question that wasn't a legitimate effort to get information. That was an effort to make a deal, a sleazy deal to help Donald Trump.
Yeah,
What do you guys think?
I agree with Phil totally. And I think everything that Donald Trump does in regard to this to try to separate himself from this or cover up, or everything that he does to, for Ghislaine Maxwell, just further, I think, erodes him in the mind of midterm voters. And I think that even if you look at the way that some of the Republicans, even like the House Speaker, are talking about this, they're smart enough to recognize that they have to distance themselves from what Donald Trump is doing right now, because they still got to get elected. Look, Donald Trump is done, unless you believe what Phil says, and we're never going to have any more elections. Donald Trump is done in 2.5, 3 years.
What about what they're doing in Texas? It may be an election, but will it be a fair election?
Yeah,
that's the point. Not just
right.
whether we have one.
Obviously, hey, look, with what's going on, we got to wrestle with that, and you can't dismiss that what you're saying. But I think these Republicans recognize that they don't want this stench stuck on them next time they have to turn around and run for election. So if you listen to the way that the Republicans are talking about it, even they're kind of pushing back a little bit, not as forcefully as you would like to see, but they're doing enough to try to separate themselves from this and Donald Trump, because they know how foul this is.
Yeah,
I agree with
last night I watched the dude on I real quick, and then I'll get out of the way and let you get in, Tarris. But I watched the guy on Newsmax, and he was making the argument that Ghislaine Maxwell was actually a victim of the Biden administration, that she was unfairly prosecuted. And so already what you're seeing is the very, very powerful conservative media echo chamber. And make no mistake about it, they are extremely powerful. They're already using their power to turn the tables and turn the way people look at Ghislaine Maxwell. And then it seems like in that world, in the conservative world, it seems like they're open to believing anything as long as a Democrat is to blame for it. And they're doing it right now with Ghislaine Maxwell. Netflix has a documentary about this. I can't remember the name of it, but if you type in Jeffrey Epstein, it'll come up. I mean, what was going down? It's one of the worst things you could ever imagine. It was absolutely terrible what happened with these young women. And nobody really has been brought to justice other than Ghislaine Maxwell. And now she's in minimum security. And it's like, how can you look at this in any other way than to conclude that perhaps the president and people around him are trying to hide something? I'm trying to figure out what other way is there to look at this.
No other way. That's exactly what it is. It's as clear as day, because what other motivation? Like, what other motivation would the Trump administration have to do what they're doing, and then to try to go back and say that she was over prosecuted by like Donald Trump? Just go back and look at some of the legal records on this stuff, and the stuff that she did, and the way that she groomed these young women for Epstein and all, and their testimony and things of that nature. This is a lady that should never see the light of day again, and deserves to be where she was, not where they're moving her to. And so this is nothing but clear, just blatant Trump trying to cover his own butt. There's no other way to look at it for a non-delusional individual. But you hit on a great point, Nathan, and this is why the ability to think, be a free thinker, is so important, because it's easy, particularly in our ultra divided politics, to be able to be manipulated. And that's not just on the conservative side. I mean, they excel at doing it. But we have to be, but those who are on the other side of that have to be careful as well, because you're susceptible to the same type of manipulation, the refusal to accept facts that don't jibe with a narrative that your quote unquote tribe wants you to believe. And so I think we all have to be in a place of being able to think freely, challenge evidence, do our own research, and use your best judgment, and not just, regurgitate or swallow whole what your favorite news network or whatever is feeding you every day. Because the reality of it is they're giving you what they know you're going to respond to as far as ratings or whatever it is. They're never giving you the entirety of the fullness of the picture of everything that's going on. I mean, if you watch a lot of these cable news, whether it's Fox, MSNBC, they basically hit on the same 2 or 3 stories ad nauseum every single day. When if you are a smart thinking person, you're like, man, there's a whole lot more going on in the world than what they're telling me I need to be concerned with on any given day. Like that's somewhat of the cable news ecosphere that I have always said that I don't know is 100% productive for our culture.
I think it's corrosive for our democracy. But again, from a just media standpoint, like what they have built is very impressive. And what they do well, and this is Fox, OAN, Newsmax, is they give people villains. They create narratives. They give people villains and they give people heroes. And they're always cast as the heroes. And that kind of media is straight out of Hollywood. I mean, it's media one-on-one, and they're very good at it. And they're very good at programming. If you look at Fox News, say what you want. They have a lot of very smart, very entertaining programs. It's just what it is. Whether you like their viewpoint or not, some of it can be very entertaining, and they do it 24/7, so you can get swept all up into it. And before you know, you've dedicated months and months and months of your time into narrative that may not always be 100% truthful. But that Netflix documentary, I mean, essentially Ghislaine Maxwell was the groomer. It was just like she was a sexual pedophile. She was looking for young ladies from broken homes, economically depressed, young white people, and preying upon them. And, we know this to be facts. Mar-a-Lago was a staging area in terms of she would go to Mar-a-Lago and take some of the girls there. And then somehow they would end up being introduced to Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know. Republicans made Epstein file a big deal, not Democrats. They talked about it. It wasn't a Democrat party.
That's what I was going to say when Kevin was talking about.
Yeah, go right ahead, Troy.
I was going to say when Kevin was talking about how the Republican Party is broken. We know Donald Trump is on his way out. I've been saying that a few times on this program.
What? Whoa. What do we know? What do you mean he's quitting? What do you mean on his way out?
He's only got 3 more years, Phil. It's only delusional people like yourself think that he's going to go for another term. He's got 3 more years. In the first 100 days was just set his policies into place. Now he's got the big bill passed. Now they're working on midterms, and like we said on this programming, Cincinnati is the litmus test. So what they do in Cincinnati and what they can get away with in this mayor race in 2025, they're going to try to do the same thing in 2026. So
you're saying what they're doing in Texas was inspired by the Corey Bowman race? Is that what you're saying? What they're doing in Texas now?
I'm saying that it has some kind of implicate. The off-year races, just like in Kentucky. Kentucky has an off-year race with the governor race. And what happened in the governor's race when Andy Beshear was able to beat the Republican candidate of Matt Bevins in 2019, rolled over, and they did the same thing with the mail-in voting. You can try to downplay what I'm saying all the time, but I'm speaking to you correct what they're trying to do. So, and the Democrats are no different, because look at the Jesse Smollett and all those kind of propaganda things that they put out there too. But we're talking about the Republican Party right now. MAGA is broken. So what they have to do now is they have to figure out who are they going to go for in the Republican Party. JD Vance has got to figure he's going to go for the center right leaning people who are logical thinking, or he's going to go for the low hanging fruit on the far right MAGA. That's what's going on with this kind of stuff. So Ghislaine Maxwell, her being released to a minimum security, we all know what's going. We all know what's going on. So that's why they're going to swiftly create as many distractions as they can to get MAGA's mind off of the Epstein files and off of Ghislaine Maxwell and all that kind of stuff onto something else, because they got to create the villain.
But Tarris, I got to ask you this. I got to ask you, it's the elephant in the room. You voted for Trump, and you just admitted that you can see what's going on, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that you were implying that it seems like Trump may have something to hide with the Epstein files. How does this sit with you when you voted for this guy?
I didn't care about the Epstein files. I didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. I cared about Kamala Harris, and I've said this on your show 1,000 times. I cared about Kamala Harris not getting elected. That was my immigration. Kamala Harris, those are the things that I voted for. And I am not a closed-minded person when it comes to politics. I will go where what's right for me. I'm a registered Republican who I'll lean, but I'm a center right leaning person. Right now, if you ask me who I would vote for the president of the United States in 2028, it would be Andy Bashir. I would go Andy Bashir for president.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm asking you, Tarris. What I'm asking you is you voted for Trump, and by all objective observations, it appears that he has something to hide in the Epstein files. How does that sit with you?
I told you, it don't bother me. I didn't vote for him because of the Epstein files. I don't care about the Epstein files. Those was one of the things.
I know you didn't vote for him because of it, but what I'm saying is, does it bother you that you might have voted for a man that might have been doing some really bad stuff to young women?
But okay.
Or associated with people that was doing bad stuff to young women.
The Epstein Island was used for Democratic fundraising campaign thing. So everybody's guilty. Who's to say who's more guilty in this thing? If the Democrats were going to Epstein Island and using it for fundraising, and George Soros and the Clintons and the Obamas and the Koch brothers from the Republican side and Chris Tucker and Koch brothers, all those, they're all implicated. All of them get it. Nobody cares.
Nathan, let me tell you this right here,
my friend. You are squirming, my friend. It's like,
no, I'm gonna tell you. Tarris gave you the answer. He gave you the answer, Nathan, and it's the same answer that every Republican who voted for Donald Trump, when you ask them this question or other questions of character, right, about the man's character. They didn't vote for his character. They voted for his policies. That's essentially what Tarris has said. And that's what every Republican will tell you. The biggest problem, because I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this mentality. The thing that aggravates me the most about Donald Trump and people who voted for him is always, how could you vote for somebody of that character to lead our country? Because for me, I don't separate a person's character from what they can do. Like if you are capable of anything and can't be trusted, then how can I trust that anything you say you will do for me, that you'll deliver on, and what you don't change up? So what I can't separate is a person's character from their ability to deliver results. Republicans they clearly don't agree with that, or they've convinced themselves that the two things don't necessarily go together, a person's character and their ability to deliver. I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. I don't really think that they think that's true, but it's their excuse to support Donald Trump.
Oh, I already know, bro.
I've never once mentioned Epstein files ever.
Of course you didn't.
Talking about Donald Trump. Never.
Of course
even
you didn't.
Even when MAGA was talking about, we want the Epstein files, we want the Epstein file, I was never like, yeah, we want the Epstein file. That's never been anything. So I can't speak on it. I can't accept those MAGA Republican attributes, because I didn't carry any of those. Somebody asked me why you vote for Donald Trump, I would have said immigration, because Kamala Harris ain't black. I have the reasons why I vote, but the Epstein files has not or never will be. January 6th has not or never will be a reason why or I didn't vote for Virginia.
Oh, of course not.
See, that's
Here's what I would say though. If Joe Biden had done the exact same thing everything in me tells me that you would hold it against him. Then you would have a moral problem with him. Like, how could Biden do this? He's a criminal. But when it's Trump, he gets a complete pass.
Well, when Trump is being implicated in doing the same thing that Barack Obama, John Legend, all of them. No,
you say John Legend?
You said John Legend.
John Legend's been he's on the log list. He's on the list. Him and his wife's on the list. Why you think Haiti got what they got for the Clinton Foundation, baby?
Conspiracy
Come on,
theories
y'all.
with no evidence whatsoever. Yeah, I mean this is typical MAGA. This is typical MAGA, 100%.
Y'all
so
brought it out
I
of
get
me,
it.
huh? Y'all got to bring
But
it out of me.
I agree. Oh, absolutely. But we're gonna
Tarris,
talk.
are you on the list?
John
That's my
Legend might be
question.
guilty of is wearing lifts in his shoes. I don't know what else John Legend has done.
It's just interesting. I mean, again, I always kind of knew the answer when I asked you, but I gotta ask you because it was the elephant in the room. Like, when it's a Democrat, they can do no wrong. They can do no right. When it's Trump, he can do nothing wrong. And it is fascinating. So quite interesting to see you squirm on that one. Because sure as I can, if Kamala Harris was president and she met with Ghislaine Maxwell and gave her a sweetheart deal, Republicans love that term, sweetheart deal. Every Republican will be talking about the moral authority and how it's wrong. But when it's Trump, you get a complete pass.
You're absolutely right, Nate, because they did it with Hunter Biden. They did it with Hunter Biden. They wanted to draw this moral line with Hunter Biden. And it's like, that's why the Republicans have zero credibility, because it's like, you sit here and you say, well, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris because she ain't black, but you voted for Donald Trump and he's a convicted felon. Which is worse? Somebody who even if you wanted to agree to that, what's worse? Somebody who perped to be a color that they're not, or somebody who is groping women and might be involved in a child pedophile person. Neither one of them are great, but I think one is significantly worse than the other. And see, these are the types of political calculations that make you wonder if we all shouldn't have to pass some type of test to be able to vote.
I was on the phone.
I know there's a long history of that against black folks, but when you hear some of the rationales that don't make sense, you do wonder if there shouldn't be some type of test that you have to take to be able to cast.
I don't like that idea, Kevin, because it's going to be
joking. I'm
but
joking.
if that happened, it would be used to unfairly vote.
I know, but I'm just saying.
But Phil was going to say something.
I was just going to say
calculations. You just be like, I don't know.
I was on the phone last night with a close friend who's been a long time Republican activist, extremely bright person. And when I brought up a host of things that Trump has done, I mean, blacklisting law firms, taking the gift of the plane, I could list 8 or 10. He responded by saying, well, what about and this is a very smart, intelligent, good person. He said, well, what about that's no different from what the Biden crime family did. I'm saying to myself, what the are you talking about? First of all, they never, when you think about it, Jordan and Comer, they had a committee and they had they had the ability to bring any possible evidence about Biden up, and they got nothing. All they had was these 2 crimes against Hunter Biden, and they say the Biden crime family. And I've learned don't get into these arguments. It doesn't do any good. So I just use the word. That's a false equivalence. And that is what we see today. We see one false equivalence after another.
And it's a very powerful tool. Whataboutism is a very powerful tool. And, people primarily I see MAGA doing it. It's always like, what about the Biden crime family? Like, what crime are you talking about? What crimes? And then they go into conjecture and hearsay and conspiracy theories, and there's no facts whatsoever. And then they'll say, well, I got my own facts. So, these days I just say, okay. That's my new thing. Okay. And I'll leave it like that. But, Tarris brought up something that's happening right now. To me, this is the biggest story in the country right now. And that's the fact that 50 Democrats from the state of Texas have now left the state because they wanted to break quorum. Apparently, it looks like Republicans in the state legislature, along with the Governor Abbott. They want to further gerrymander the state of Texas to get more seats. Apparently, Donald Trump made another phone call. Remember, he made a phone call to Georgia to try to find 1,100 or 11,000 votes. Apparently, he made a phone call to Texas and said, listen, my policies are not being well received, and I need you guys to try to get 5 more seats. So I want to play a quick video. This is of Texas Democrats who have fled the state explaining their actions. Check this out.
I'm here to have fun. We're not here because this is easy, and we did not make the decision to come here today. We did not make a decision lightly. But we come here today with absolute moral clarity that this is absolutely the right thing to do to protect the people of the state of Texas. Yeah. For the last few weeks, Texas families have been burying their loved ones who were killed in the very preventable tragedy that occurred in Central Texas.
Not on our watch. Right. We will not have our democracy taken on our watch.
I've heard Democrats say this is about democracy, and I think they're right. What's happening here, I think, what's happening here is, so people don't know, so what happens is you've got to have a certain amount of legislatures who are actually in attendance to move forward. It's called quorum. If you don't have that magic number, then you can't proceed forward. In the state of Texas, this is a tool that I have read they've been using for 100 years. When the minority party or the party that's in the minority legislatively, when they feel like the other side is going too far, they decide to not show up, to just shut everything down. And that's what Democrats have done. They've now went to, I believe they're in Illinois now, and under the protection of the Democrat governor there, Governor Abbott has issued a civil warrant for their arrest. And this is just a really, really bad situation. Now you've got the governor of California saying that, Governor Newsom saying that he is willing to gerrymander his state to pick up more states. Humbly, and I've been saying this for a long time, I'm starting to see Democrats use this word more and more. I've been saying it for years. There's a war going on. And now Democrats understand what they're up against. It's not about playing fair. It's about power. It's not about policy. It's about power. I think that what Texas Democrat or the Texas Republicans are doing is dead wrong, because basically you're trying to undercut the will of the people. And I think the Democrats are forced. They are forced at this point to do the same thing. And I think this is going to be bad. I think it leads to a fracture of our union. I can see it now. I can see a bunch of Republican-led states doing their own thing, and then a bunch of Democrat-led states doing their own thing. There's a word for it. It's called civil war, whether it's a battleground or not. There's a cold war going on right now. That's just my humble opinion. What do you think about it? Are Texas Democrats wrong to leave the state, to shut things down, or what do you think?
Well, one of the things that
I think they're wrong to leave the state because they got voted to do a job. If they want to change something, well, that's an oxymoron. They got to win elections, but it's hard for them to win elections if they gerrymander things. So it's kind of like
it's impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. And I say that in Kentucky, it'll be a long day. I'm talking about 100 years or more, probably never, before we see a Democratic-led, more Democrats than there is Republicans. And I'm talking, they put this in place in 70, like the 1900s, 19 something, and it ain't. I can't see it forever changing, because this same thing. So that's what I was saying. If you guys don't get in, if the United States of America doesn't get in control of this, what's going on in Texas, what's going on in California is going to go on everywhere, because it's already happened in Kentucky and it's irreversible.
Listen, the biggest threat to our democracy is not Donald Trump, is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is the biggest threat to our democracy, because gerrymandering is what allows these politicians to not be accountable to the people. It's what allows them to only be concerned about the far fringes of their bases because they only have to run in primaries. There's no general election threat, so they don't have to be middle of the road. And the Democrats are absolutely right for doing what they're doing, because the Republicans are trying to run a shell game down there in Texas. They're trying to stack the deck. They're trying to rig it. So once again, your voice does not matter. And what the Democrats are doing are not illegal. It is a part of the system, as Nathan said, that has been used before, and they're availing themselves of the system in which to try to block this from happening. And let's not forget, the Republicans are also trying to slip in this gerrymandering measure, as they always do, like with what Trump was doing with the big beautiful bill. They're trying to stuff a whole bunch of stuff, Texas flooding aid and a whole bunch of other stuff in a bill while they slip this in as a part of it. And so the Democrats are not falling for that game, and the Republicans are trying to say with just what Tarris said, well, they got a job to do, and look at all of the people that we're not being, the Texas flooding victims and all of this, that we're not being able to deliver for because they're not here to do their job. This is the political game that's being played. But we've already seen it here in Ohio, where the people have said in gerrymandering, and Republicans here in the state have said, forget you. We're going to continue to do what we're going to want to do. We're not going to create fair, competitive districts. We're going to continue to protect our little fiefdom so that we can maintain control here, even though the gerrymandering measure, the measure that got passed, even if they had implemented it, wouldn't have probably changed. There would have been more Democrats for sure, but it wouldn't have changed the power dynamic in Ohio. Republicans would have probably still had the majority. Democrats would have probably picked up a few more seats as a result of the changes. But this is the extent to which the Republicans are willing to go to maintain ultimate control and to not have to listen to the majority of voters wherever. And just like the Electoral College is the only thing that's keeping the Republican Party alive, it's gerrymandering is the only thing that is allowing the Republicans to maintain any semblance of power and authority. Because if it wasn't for the Electoral College, you probably would never have another Republican president again. I'm just saying that's just, if it was just straight up popular vote, you would never have another Republican president. That's probably, at least unless they change their platform, right? They just wouldn't. And the same is probably true with gerrymandering. They wouldn't have nearly the influence that they have. And so this is the greatest threat, I think, to our democracy right now, is if we don't get a handle on these gerrymandering tactics.
Phil, your thoughts?
One of the most difficult things for me is to ever admit that Nathan was right and I'm wrong. I mean, this, I'm going to need some therapy probably to deal with this. But no, you guys don't have to nod your heads about that. But I have to say, I agree with Kevin. I think gerrymandering is just the crux of what's destroying our democracy. And when we first talked about this a week or so ago, my position was, well, they're doing something wrong. We shouldn't, no, two wrongs don't make a right, blah, blah. But I am now persuaded, as Nathan said, that our democracy, the whole democracy, is at risk here. And I've Kevin and I could talk about this, but to me, this thing in Texas, this is just the authoritarian playbook. This is basically taking control of elections. So you get to the point where it really doesn't, the elections don't mean anything. They're kind of like Russian elections, Hungarian elections. And what's really sad about this is that it rewards the worst conduct. New York and California, who are the two states that could probably most effectively fight back. And I think Gavin Newsom, I don't care if he's running for president, I think he has been the most effective leader in the Democratic Party on a host of issues, because he has stood up and said what needs to be said on a host of things. But what's sad is that New York and California have passed state constitutional amendments that actually require nonpartisan gerrymandering. They did the right thing. And now unfortunately, both the governors are saying, sad, but we're going to have to change that to protect our democracy. But what makes this difficult is it's not so easy to change a constitutional amendment. You generally almost always have to go on the ballot. So in order to, it doesn't do much good if they don't get it, if they are going to do this, if they don't get it passed this fall. Because other than that, all the stuff they're doing in Texas and probably other states to follow, that's going to control the 2026 election. So if these states, California, New York, and others that are going to need constitutional amendments to be able to fight back, they have to do it this year.
And
I want to add something. Let me add something. I didn't get a chance to add that. I want to add that. What are they going to do about it? That's my thing. Is what are the Democrats going to do about it? Because eventually,
well, are you reading?
I'm talking about the gerrymander. Okay, I'm talking about when they get back in office. When they already went to Illinois, they have to come back. But they have to come back. And when they have to come back, they're going to
get back. What are you talking about?
He's talking about the Texas Democrats. What are they going to do when they go back to the legislature?
When they come back to Texas?
That's okay. Phil, let me finish this point, man. Let me finish the point. When they get back, they're going to do the same things that the Democrats had to do after the 24-hour filibuster. They're going to have to vote, and so that's what I'm saying. Just get on with it. I understand the political. This is no more of a political grandstand than anything else. They're making a stand. They're saying this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do. But the end result is they have to go back. They're eventually going to have to go back in session. They can't stay out of session forever. They can't. If they stay out of session,
you're probably right.
If they stay out of session forever, they will eventually start appointing people to who they want to appoint and then that's going to be it. So they eventually got to go back. So my question is, what are they going to do about it? And my answer is nothing. They're going to do this just like the big blue bill got passed after Cory Booker or Hakeem Jeffries.
Are you talking about what the people in Texas are going to do about it?
It's a comparison analogy, Phil. Just like the filibuster for 24 hours.
But the people in California, New York, and other blue states can.
The big blue bill passed anyway, regardless of the filibuster for all those times. This walking away from Texas and going to Illinois when they got to come back, because he couldn't. So I'm saying, so we can talk about it. You can talk about it. But so when it happens, what are you going to do about it?
I'm telling you right now what they're going to do. Other blue states are going to gerrymander their rules so they can add more Democratic seats. That's what we're talking about in order to combat the unethical activities that they're doing in Texas. That's what has to be done.
Yeah, that's the only threat that stops it. Like, Democrats in Texas can't stop it. To your point, eventually they got to vote. They got to show up. And there's probably not much resistance that they can put up in Texas. But the only way you get Texas to stop it is the Democrats have to show backbone in these other states and say, okay, if this is what you're going to do in Texas, this is what we're going to do in California and New York, and you don't want that, right? And here's why I think that I don't have much faith. And again, I kind of feel like I'm coming full circle, kind of like you, and having to admit that you and Nathan might be right to some degree about the lack of faith that I have in the American people more broadly. I would say Ohio has shown that they're the exception, because the average citizen of Democrat or Republican in Ohio has said they don't want gerrymandering. So that's Republicans and Democrats. The voters have said that, a majority of voters in Ohio. It is the Republican elected officials and now a Republican Supreme Court that does not want to hold them accountable for what the voters have said. I think more broadly across the country, we're so divided now, Republican and Democrats, that it's all just become about my side winning. So where you would be hopeful that the American people would say, to what Nathan said, this is a path of mutually assured destruction or whatever that we don't want to go down for what's good for the country. I think that more broadly, the country is super dug in on their side, that this division is so deep And for conservatives, there's so much hate for liberals and vice versa that I think people are just dug in and wanting their side to win because they don't want the other side to get control.
But there's more to it than that, though. There has been a decades-long concerted effort to bring us to this point. We're not here by accident. This, for many people, is the plan. There are people out there, and I know it's hard for people to digest this, but there are people out there that want there to be a civil war. They want to see this division between us. They're fomenting this, just like what's happening in Cincinnati. Because what social scientists tell us now is that when people feel unsafe, they're willing to give up their rights to feel safe. And that's why I push back on crime, because it's very dangerous. If you make somebody afraid enough, they will give up their democracy if they feel like that'll make them feel safe. And that's what's happened in other countries. This information is out there. And there are people, very smart people, well-financed people, well-connected people who know that. And I fear that they're trying to push us in that direction because it's all bad. I want competitive districts. Democrat or Republican, whoever wins, best ideas, best policy. If a Republican wins, okay. If a Democrat wins, okay. But it should be competitive for the people.
But that's how you get the best ideas.
But that's how you get the best ideas. But that is not what's happening. And I feel like if Republican leadership tried to do that here in Ohio, they could do it. They could get it done in Ohio, and the majority of people would accept it because nobody wants to lose their job. The prices, everything is going up. Everybody's afraid about having, some kind of disastrous health thing that you can't afford. Everyone's afraid of losing their job. And most people are not going to say anything. And that's just where we are. It's very unfortunate. I care more about democracy than having a Democrat in the White House. I care more about democracy than having a Republican in the White House. It's not about party. It's about us. It's about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about Democrats and Republicans and Trump and Biden. It's about us. What kind of country do we want to live in? And democracy has never lived up to its promises to people that look like me. But I'll still take that over autocracy any day of the week. I'll still take that over dictatorship any day of the week, because at least I got a chance to push us in a better direction. That's just my opinion about it.
And Nathan, I think the majority of Americans agree with you. I think I think the percentage of people that want what you just said, the Civil War, I think is a small but influential part of our population. But I think that the majority of us want exactly like what you just said. They want the best ideas to come forward. May the best man win. And maybe naively, I want to believe that our politics used to be like that. But I think it's become so toxic over the last 15 to 20 years in this country that both parties have done so much of trying to convince that the other side is evil and that they want your destruction and the destruction of this country, that it's hard to come back from that, because you're saying, well, we can't ever let a Democrat get back in, because if we let a Democrat get back in, this is what's going to happen, and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side, well, we see what Trump is doing now, and if the Republicans maintain control, blah, blah, blah. And we've villainized each other so much politically that I don't know that we have the leadership present to back us out of this cliff that we're headed over. Because it takes a certain type of leader to undo this damage. And right now we don't have it. And we can't get it. We can't get it because of gerrymandering.
As a Republican, I'm going to say that actually it really isn't both sides. Sure, there's been fault on Democrats, Republicans, but I have to admit the threat to our democracy is coming from my party, from the Republicans. We just can't deny that. They have chosen to basically kiss the ring and to go along with a dangerous demagogue out of their own self-preservation. It's no different than throughout history when dictators have come to power, most people, as to use my mom's expression, they become good Germans. And I'm not disagreeing with anything Kevin says, but I have to admit that the fault, there maybe have been toxicity on both sides, but the fault, I have to say, the fault is with my party in this.
And as a Republican, I want to hold on. Let me be a rebuttal of that, because he's talking for the Republican Party, and I want to, as a Black Republican, since we're going to talk about Republican Party, I believe that it's both parties, and the Democratic Party is more responsible for trying to tear down our democracy by appointing Kamala Harris and not having a primary. What is democratic about that? By when Joe Biden dropped out, they didn't have a primary. They appointed her. So what part of democracy is that? You're talking about tearing down democracy as we know it. Whose party actually? So Phil, as much as you want to say you want to act like you're a Republican and get on good people's side by tearing down the Republican Party, I will be the Republican that sits on here and tells what the Democrats are doing by trying to tear down the democracy too, by appointing Kamala Harris and not having a primary. That's undemocratic.
This is the same discussion that we had with Kevin, who I missed on some levels. Same discussion I had with Kevin Gordon. Oh, you're a rhino. You're not a real Republican. Well, what's happened, Tarris, and it's kind of pathetic, is that Republicans have gone along with Trump's views that are totally contrary to conservative republicanism. You might recall Ronald Reagan was known for standing up to dictators. Trump loves dictators. Ronald Reagan was for free trade. Okay? Trump is totally against free trade. He's Mr. Tariff. And we Republicans are supposed to be conservative as fiscal responsibility. And yet the party just passed a bill that's going to add $4 trillion to the national debt. So, the fact of the matter is, much like Ronald Reagan said about the Democrats, in my case, I'm not leaving my party, but my party has left me. And Kevin or somebody was talking about how kind of like people just act like sheep. I mean, Republicans have basically allowed this man to totally change the views of what republicanism is, and nobody's questioning it. They're just going along with it. Things that they would have abhorred 10 years ago. Things that Ronald Reagan would turn in his grave on. Now our party stands for. We are the ones that are pleasing, that are refusing to stand up to dictators. We are the ones that are fiscally irresponsible. We are the ones that are blocking free trade. That is what's really sad about my party, the Republican Party.
So let me address what Tarris just said. And here's the problem. And this goes back to something that we said earlier. Tarris, I'm going to not entirely disagree with what you just said. But what you are doing is you're trying to compare unlike things and make them equal. So I wouldn't have a problem with anybody who said, hey, the way the Democrats handled Joe Biden stepping down and how they got his replacement might have come off as undemocratic because the people didn't really get an opportunity to decide who they wanted their candidate to be. The people elected, Joe Biden. Maybe there should have been some sort of primary process. There are people who said that. There are Democrats who said that. So I'm not going to even say that somebody who wants to hold that belief that maybe that wasn't the most democratic process for finding a replacement for Joe Biden, you wouldn't be out of line for saying that. But to compare that to some of the things that we've seen Donald Trump and the Republicans do as a reason to say, see, look what the Democrats are doing, this is just as bad, is not the case. I mean, it's that argument about how the Democrats settle, it's a questionable debate at most, right? Like that might just be a matter of one's opinion versus a certainty of something being undemocratic. You just may not have liked that process and felt like, hey, as a voter, I would have liked to have had the chance to have voted for Gavin Newsom or somebody else as a replacement.
He wasn't running.
I get that. But to Tarris's point and what other people have said is, and the Democrats actually could have done this,
No,
but there are a variety of reasons why they didn't.
The number one reason is nobody was going to run against her.
What he's saying is that he's saying that what Tarris, no offense, and others are saying is a false equivalence. Whether or not
it's not really false equivalence.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's a
BS observation.
I'm trying to give him. I'm trying to be generous and say, even if I did want to acknowledge that somebody might be well within their rights to feel that way about how they did it being undemocratic, it's not the same.
That was all just MAGA rhetoric. I mean, the reality is that.
But it wasn't just MAGA people who were saying that, though, Nathan. In all honesty, there were Democrats.
Primarily MAGA people who were saying it. It was primarily MAGA people who were saying it. And if you look at the reality of it and the facts is that Biden drops out unexpectedly with 100 days. There were no candidates that were going to jump up and challenge Kamala Harris, who was the sitting vice president. There was no candidates. There was no primary to be had because no one was going to run against her. And
well,
then
you don't know that I mean, the reality was
name for me who was going to run against her. There was
we don't know, but there were all sorts of names that were out.
Kevin, we do know.
There were all sorts of names.
The point is
all sorts
the
of names that people speculate about, but nobody put their head. Nobody put their
because
name
they crushed it. They crushed that.
There was nothing to crush. There was nothing to crush. Nobody was going to step up and oppose
you
the
can't say
vice
that.
president. We do know
How
that.
can you say that, Nathan? How can you say that? How do you know that?
I can say that for certain.
No, how do you know that other than that's your – wait a minute. Bruh, give me a source, a factual source other than your feeling that you know that.
You Google and tell me. You Google and tell me the names of any Democrats that said they seriously wanted to run against Kamala Harris. There were none. There was 100 days left. There wasn't a whole lot of time. There were no Democrats that were going to step up and challenge the sitting black female vice president. And then you also got to think of who is the most consistent base for the Democrats, black females. There was no way in the world that they were going to put somebody else over Vice President Kamala Harris and still get the support of black people and primarily black
so
women.
You're exactly
political death. It would have been political death for whoever jumped up there. So no, that was just MAGA rhetoric BS that kind of sounds good, but there was no real serious foundation for it, no whatsoever. Because of what name? Who was going to jump up and run against her? Who?
Nathan, look, there were other names out there.
Who?
Namely Gretchen Whitmer. Gavin
Whitmer.
Newsom. There were a whole bunch of other names out there.
It doesn't matter.
Neither one of them were going to leave their governorships. They both said it. That is just not true.
I'm only making this a debate, Phil, because Nathan is intent on saying that. Look, you and I all know the reason why nobody challenged Kamala Harris from this, and I'm gonna just say it. The Democratic Black Caucus wasn't going to let that happen. And they made it clear
that
if the Democratic Party tried to put anybody else other than the black female vice president out front, it was going to be messy.
For good reason. The most consistent base.
The Democratic Party said that we don't want that smoke. And so we're not going to move forward with any kind of primary process. But you're not going to sit here and tell me, you're not going to sit here and tell me that broadly the Democratic Party was thrilled with Kamala Harris being their candidate.
That's not what I'm telling you. What I'm asking you to tell me is name the names of the people that said
I just gave you two names. I just gave you two names.
Wrong. Neither one of those people wanted to run against her.
Well, you produce the evidence that tells me that I'm wrong. That because Nathan, you're arguing a point. You're arguing a point that we will never know because they crushed that process.
The facts produced it. Gavin didn't put his name in the hat. He said no. Gretchen Whitmer said no.
You know why they said no. You know why they said. You and I both know why they said no. It doesn't matter
why they said it. All I'm telling you is this idea that there were other candidates that were priming to run against Kamala Harris is a lie.
They never allowed the process to play out. That's my point.
There was nobody
never allowed the process to play out, so we don't know.
There was no one to be in the process. Nobody stepped up and said, "I'm going to run against Kamala Harris."
That's not true because there was never that open dialogue in the Democratic Party. They squashed that from the beginning.
And tell me. Then Google it.
Okay. All
Google
right.
it
Well,
right now and tell me.
you know what? I'll
Nobody
let you
stepped
have that
up.
one, bro. I'll let you have that one. It's
You're
not
letting me have
invariably.
anything.
It's
These
not
are
even
the
really that
facts.
important to what
These
we.
are the facts.
Okay.
Nobody, there
Well,
was
they're your
nobody
facts.
to be in a
They're
primary.
your facts.
Those are, it's the facts. Google it.
Okay.
Google it
Okay.
right now.
All right.
Okay. Google it right now and tell me who said they wanted to run against Kamala Harris. There was nobody.
Okay.
You only had 100 days, and then politically it would have been death. Black females are the Democrats' most consistent
So
supporter.
you're outlining every reason that I'm saying they crushed that process to it never even got to
I'm
that
outlining
point.
every
all
reason
of the
why
reasons
they
that you're
didn't start
saying.
the process.
They crushed it.
I'm
crushed
outlining
that
every
process.
reason why they didn't start the process, because it would have been black people, and especially black women, would have looked at that like sabotage.
Absolutely.
She's the sitting vice president. So
That's
this
why they
idea,
crushed. That's why they
okay,
crushed the
so
process.
they didn't
That's
crush
why
the
they crushed.
process.
You're
There
making
was
my
no
point.
process to
You're
be
making
had.
my point.
Words
making my
matter.
point.
Words
making my
matter.
point.
There was no process to be had because nobody was going to run against her. I mean,
I
wasn't the only one reading the news when this was happening.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that there was
you don't
nobody.
have to believe it.
I don't
Google
believe
it.
that there was nobody else who would have stepped up and
There
ran.
was nobody that was stepped up. There was not going to be a primary, and then you only had 100 days. So how you going to have a primary and then have enough time to run against Trump? So all I'm saying is this whole idea that there was even going to be a primary was just MAGA BS. It was just something to criticize the Democrats about, and a lot of people just ran with it because it sounded good. Gavin said he wasn't going to run. Gretchen said she wasn't going to run. That was it. There was nobody to run against in 100 days. Okay. So they spent 30 days on a primary, and now she got what? 70 days left. Come on, man. So let's stop the MAGA rhetoric. That's all.
They could have done something at the Democratic National Convention.
That's not the place for
it. They could.
That's not the place.
Here we go.
That's not the place for it.
But you're right. You're right, Nathan. You're right. I mean, what you're saying about that. But the point where you were asking, what I was making with Phil was saying that the Democratic Party was faultless in the demise of potentially ruined democracy. That's why I was saying we think that was further movement.
There's no comparison.
There's no comparison whatsoever.
Nathan, with all due respect, the point I think that Kevin was making is, who cares? Let's say the Democrats sabotaged it to get Kamala Harris in. Who cares? First of all,
that's not democracy.
It is democracy.
Excuse me. Let me finish. That is internal Democratic politics. To compare that to what's going on today, blacklisting law firms, corruption, taking gifts from other countries, trying to screw over the whole country by adding 5 seats. I mean, I don't care what the Democrats did then. There is no comparison between the threat to our democracy. There is no comparison between anything the Democrats did and the threat to our democracy today.
No, 100%. If you ask 10 people, they're going to get 10 different answers. That's subjective.
I don't care about 10 people. I'm telling you the truth.
It's not that, and I guess that was my overall general point. Like there's some things that you can look at, and it's not subjective. You can look at something and clearly see if something weighs more than something else. Nobody would say that a small rock weighs more than an elephant, right? And this is what you do. You look at a small rock and you try to make it into an elephant. And what I'm saying is that even if you wanted to give credence to the Kamala Harris primary argument, that does not compare to these things that we're talking about that the Republicans can do. That's a small rock in comparison to
right.
So that's not subjective. And people ought to be able to look at unlike things and see that they're not proportional.
Those are things that are important to the Democrats and things that are important to the Republicans. Like I could say that you guys thinking that immigration reform is a small thing. Immigration reforms, because you guys weren't even talking about immigration reform. I was saying about immigration, but now that you lost the election and immigration reform has happened, it's a big thing. But to you guys, it was small.
That's not true.
Never
it's just
true.
that it was overinflated. The issue was never the border. Yeah, it was over. What was happening at the border was overinflated. The real issue with immigration is what didn't happen in DC. The way you fix immigration is not at the border per se. It's Democrats and Republicans coming together and passing comprehensive immigration reform, which, by the way, they had a deal, but Donald Trump told them not to so he could run against it. I mean, so if we're going to talk about, let's talk about the facts. And Angela's right. Liberals don't give a damn about no jeans commercials. We don't care about that. But right now, if you go online, MAGA's like, oh, the liberals are so upset. Nobody cares. No one cares about that. And we don't care if the next Black Panther movie comes out and Black Panther is white. We don't care. So what? No one cares about this. But MAGA makes these things up and they create, it's like Don Quixote. They're always tilting at windmills. These imaginary dragons, but it's really a windmill. I mean, stop it. Stop it. And so this whole thing about the primary was nothing but very smart, though. Great politics because it worked. It was all MAGA trying to tell people that somehow the Democrats did something wrong. That's internal Democrat partisan politics. That's got nothing to do with the Constitution at all. If the Republicans had did the same thing, I wouldn't care. So what? But it makes for a great talking point for people who don't really know. It's like, it's undemocratic. They just chose her. She was the sitting vice president. She's the sitting vice president. If Joe Biden had died in office, she would have became president. So if he steps down, she should become president. It's real simple. But MAGA and conservative media are brilliant. They are brilliant. I give them a lot of credit. They are brilliant at the communication game. And so people buy a lot of it. I give them their props. That's all I got, guys. We've been way over time here. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back on Friday. And I think Tarris is going to be with us again on Friday. Is that right, Tarris?
Yeah, I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
Be here.
So it'll be, Phil, are you available on Friday?
I am available. Can I say one quick comment?
Absolutely.
I'll make it quick.
You can get the final word.
All right. I love it. Considering our last conversation, I want to quote a good friend of mine named Steve Sjogren, who was the founding pastor of the Big Vineyard Church here in Cincinnati. And he's talking about biblical stuff, but one of his sayings that I really liked was, don't major in the minors.
Yeah, keep the main thing the main thing.
The main thing. That's our democracy.
Terrence, I can't let you get off, though, that the Democrats didn't care about immigration. That's another MAGA talking point.
Another MAGA.
Because,
that wasn't a Democratic.
Because one of the first pieces of legislation that Joe Biden introduced when he took in was an immigration bill that Congress never did anything with.
Right.
And they always conveniently ignore that Biden didn't try to get that off in the beginning when he first took over the White House. And Congress, as they have done for decades, has not wanted to address this issue head on. And then later on, when he tried to bring back another bill prior to the election, Donald Trump shot that down, right? So we can't sit here and say the Democrats did not care about immigration. What Democrats have always argued, and don't forget, they called Obama the deporter in chief. And last time I looked, he was a Democrat, so that's just an argument.
That was to you guys. That was for Kevin, Phil, and Nathan. That was talking about you guys. Whenever we were on the show and we were talking about immigration, I would say Kamala Harris isn't focused on immigration. You're like, that doesn't matter. You guys were like, and I was like, that's what I was talking. I wasn't talking about Democrat. I was talking about.
I don't remember ever saying it doesn't matter. It certainly matters. It's just that I'm not going to vilify Black and brown people that come to the nation's border when I know that the solution happens in D.C. That's Democrats and Republicans coming together. And unfortunately, listen, for the longest time, I was a registered independent and still feel that way. And when I saw the way that the Republican Party treated Obama, meaning that they didn't want to work with him on anything, it didn't matter what he came up with. I'm like, you don't care about the American people. It was all about negativity. And I saw the same thing happen with Biden. So I'm glad that Kevin said that. He's right. That was the first thing. The first thing that they put out there was about immigration reform. But the Republicans said, nah, we don't want to fix it because we want to run against you on it. And that's just so cynical. And the only people that lose is us. We're the American people lose. So that's it. We'll be back on Friday. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your time. Please like and share this podcast, and have a great Tuesday.